Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we are going to be continuing our wonderful little mini series on probably one of my favorite shows of the year so far, and that show is House of the Dragon. So, obviously, last week you guys received an episode on House of the Dragon where we discussed and we covered episode six. So now we are up to episode seven. So we have this episode, and then we have the finale to discuss, and then we are going to be done with our House of the Dragon talk for now. But yeah, so I'm excited to get into today's episode. Obviously, there was a lot of good stuff that happened in this episode, so I'm excited to talk about it. Again, thank you guys for coming back to another episode. Hopefully, you enjoyed the last episode. I saw we got a couple of new subscribers on the YouTube channel, so welcome to everybody that has joined the wonderful Two Sons podcast family. And again, thank you for all the love and support that you've shown us on YouTube and in the most recent video. So if you guys remember our conversation from last week, I will be putting out a couple more episodes in the next couple of weeks. I am obviously planning a trip up to New York, and I will be there for a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure that I have a couple of episodes pre-recorded, so that way it makes my transition up to New York a little bit easier. And then when I get settled in there for now, I am going to, continue posting episodes as I usually would. But I just want to make it clear that I'm not moving up there. I'm just going up there temporarily, to kind of, deal with some, personal matters and whatnot. So, by the time I sit and record, probably the first live episode, so to speak, because, this episode today and, the other two that I'm going to do after this, you're going to see me in the same exact shirt, same exact surroundings and whatnot. So these are all going to be done like back to back to back, or they're going to be done in the span of the same week. And they're going to be like, set to release, next week and then the following week and, so on and so forth. So when you see the official change of scenery, you'll know that, I'm up in New York and, I'm filming up there temporarily. But with that being said, let's get into how I'm doing. If for those of you that are wondering, Philip, where the hell has your brother been these last couple of weeks? Is he alive? Is he breathing? Is he what's he up to? Like I said, he has a new job. He's working at Red Bull. So he's been super busy. He just started recently, so he's just getting used to his schedule, kind of adjusting his time and his routines and just his daily life. But he has promised me that he's going to post the episodes on Spotify for you guys that like to listen to the audio version and listen to us on Spotify. To be honest, I have no idea when he's going to do it. All I know is that he plans on doing it at some point. So, for now, and for the foreseeable future, if you guys want to watch these episodes or listen to them, like, when they release day one, you're probably better off going to the YouTube, which is simply just Two Sons Podcast. That is with an O and not a U, because we are two brothers. Because I take charge of the YouTube and I make sure the episodes are posted and whatnot. So those will come out when they're supposed to come out. So if you guys want to listen to us day one, go on the YouTube if you don't mind waiting a little bit. Then again, you can find us on Spotify also at Two Sons Podcast. Again, he's been pretty busy. That's all part of adulting and growing up and trying to develop some sort of routine and schedule. So he has promised me that he's going to release the episodes. Like I said, I don't know when, but I believe him. And like I said, hopefully we can get together for a couple of episodes down the line. And hopefully once he's figured out this routine, with his new job and just life in general, we'll be able to get back together and record, the both of us. But I really appreciate all the love and support that you guys have given me, at least with these solo episodes. Seeing the views and the numbers that we get on them really means a lot, and it really motivates me to continue doing these solo episodes for you guys, because you seem to enjoy them a lot. So, but with that being said, obviously, kind of transitioning into what's going on with me. So, like I mentioned, I'm going up to New York, for a couple of weeks, for some personal matters and issues and whatnot. So I am excited. I'm excited to go up to New York and get a little slice of home once again. See some family, some friends, and just kind of relax for a little bit. But I will miss Florida for the time being. Florida has become my home for the last couple of years. So I'm really gonna miss my family and friends down here while I'm up there. So obviously my goal is to come back down here as soon as possible. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. I've been pretty productive. Obviously, staying really busy this week. Just kind of making some final preparations and everything before I leave. So yeah, but I've been doing pretty good, and like I said, I'm excited to sit down and talk about our episode today. Um, like I said, be on the lookout for obviously this episode, and then obviously we're going to be discussing the finale of House of the Dragon, and then I want to bring you guys a Alien Romulus review because I absolutely love that movie. I've been on such a huge Alien kick since then. I might go see it again tonight because it is Tuesday, so we get those discount tickets, so I might go see it again um, for the second time. And yeah, but other than that, like I said, just be on the lookout for a couple of more episodes coming in the next few weeks. And yeah, other than that, let's get right into the episode. So, episode 7, there's a lot to break down here. So obviously this is the second to last episode before the season finale of House of the Dragon. And just like how we always do, we're going to start with my rating. So this episode is again another solid 10 out of 10 suns. I mean, this is probably one of the best episodes of the season by far. A lot to do with the dragons, and I think the way they paced the show and where they ended up in this specific episode was the perfect segue to the finale. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Just like how we always do, we're going to get into our discussion on how both sides are doing. So obviously, at the end of episode 6, I kind of argued that I think Team Black has the advantage as of now when it comes to the whole Dance of the Dragons. We discussed that Team Green and just their council and their side was a little in disarray, and with the power change between King Aegon II and the Prince Regent Aemond Targaryen, there's been a little bit of shift in power and authority. So it's kind of taken everybody a little by surprise. Then you have key players such as Alicent, um, and some small council members that are kind of figuring out how to navigate these new waters and like what their role exactly is, when it comes to the administration and the rule. Um, so, kind of returning back to Team Green, at least in this episode, we're still seeing, that Aemond is trying to assert his authority and his rule as Prince Regent, amongst the small council. If memory serves me correctly, I think we might open up on a small council meeting. I don't know if it was the last episode or this episode, but we, see a small council meeting, and we see at the end of the meeting that Prince Aemond dismisses his mother, Alicent Hightower, and says, you're basically no longer needed at the small council. Thank you for all your input and years of service, but you're no longer needed here. You could retire. You could do whatever you want now. We might have talked about this last episode, but I'm just gonna bring it up again just in case it was this episode. And we see that, according to Alicent, she just simply sees, instead of the Prince Regent, so to speak, she sees her son um, from a young age, still griping and still what's the word I'm looking for? Still upset about what happened to him and his eye when he was a lot younger. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, Aemon got into a scuffle with Jacaerys and Lucerys back in season 1, and Lucerys took his eye out, which is why obviously he has the scar and he has the sapphire jewel in his eye and whatnot. Um, so Allison is basically her son just trying to like grasp for power and feel that he's bigger and better than everybody, basically. And we see for a second, like for a split second, that they kind of connect like mother and son. And then just like that, it's kind of like snapped out of, and he, ends up taking off and, attending to other matters. Um, and I mean, really, I would say like this episode in particular, I mean, at least when it comes to Team Green, we don't really see a lot. I mean, I think if anything, this episode heavily focuses on Alicent. I think episode 8 is when we see more of Helena. So I think really this episode is kind of split between Aegon and Alicent. At least when it comes to Aegon, we're seeing that he's starting to go through some sort and rehab in order to kind of get his strength up and kind of resume daily activities. But we see that obviously he's having a very hard time adjusting to all of his injuries and his situation that he's currently in. And he's in a lot of pain and he's not as motivated, because according to him, he's, disabled, he's a freak, he's scarred. Um, so, he's depressed, he's like, what's the point? What's the point of trying to rehabilitate myself and everything, when this is what I look like. And we've seen that, both, the Maester, I forget what his name is. But we see, the Maester and, Lara Strong, uh, with Aegon, to make sure he's comfortable and he's healing properly. But then we also see Laris play more of an important role in the sense of motivation. I mean, I'm sure there's obviously his own personal motivations behind him getting close to the king and wanting him to have a speedy, recovery. But we really see that Laris tries to motivate Aegon by not being discouraged based on like, how he looks or what happened to him. And to remind him that he's still the king and he could rise basically above and beyond his standing and get to where he wants pretty much. Um and like I said, it's in this episode where we see him try to like, walk around the room, with the help of Maester, and we see that he's struggling, and this is where Laris comes in, and obviously they get him back into bed, and they have that conversation, where he tries to motivate him in a way, and all that. But I mean, that's pretty much what's going on with Aegon, really. I mean, it's not until episode 8 where we see a little bit more happen, in terms of what the fate of King Aegon II is by the end of the season. But for now, we see that he's still recovering from his injuries and he's going through some rehab basically. Now when it comes to Alicent, she kind of has more of like a personality awakening, which is really interesting. This is something that the show is doing different from the books, in terms of like, pivoting away from her personality and her characteristics. We see that, basically after she's dismissed, by the small council and her son Aemond, that she wants to leave the city. We see that she wants to take some time away from the city and I guess maybe just be at peace or just have some alone time. So she takes her personal guard and they go into the King's Wood, which is like the forest area around King's Landing. And there, they set up camp. It's almost like they go on a camping trip for the weekend. Her bodyguard, sets up camp for the both of them, and we see that there's a really powerful scene where after they set up camp, it's almost like the next day. We see Alicent like walking towards what looks like this lake, and she basically like strips down, into just kind of like her like white garments, so to speak, and she gets in the water and she just kind of sits there and she floats there and she swims a little bit. And the way I perceived it with this whole scene is it was almost like a baptism. It almost felt like she was possibly cleansing herself of her past mistakes and sins, and she was in a way like rebirthed after she left the water. Um, and I think this comes from these last couple of episodes where she found out that Viserys wasn't talking about Aegon when he was telling her the prophecy about the prince that was promised a song in Ice and Fire. So she realizes that she made that huge mistake, and she's seeing the devastation and destruction that this dance is causing. Not only House Targaryen, but the whole of Westeros as a whole. And then especially having that private meeting with Rhaenyra early on in the season, we see that she's really been struggling internally, to kind of figure out if what she did was the right thing, and not only trying to figure out if what she did was the right thing, but then also trying to find herself and figure out where now that she is more quasi independent and can make her own choices in life, what her path is going to look like. And all of those factors combined into this episode and that scene with the lake is, at least for me, is basically her redeeming herself and kind of baptizing herself in the Faith of the Seven, or just baptizing herself into like Allison 2.0. And we see how that choice, alters some events and what she does in the finale, episode 8, because obviously that plays a huge part into what she does in that episode. Um, but I mean, other than that, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for Team Green in this episode. This episode honestly heavily focused on Team Black. Um, so there wasn't really too much with Team Green. I think the most important thing to take away from Team Green is the shift in personality and characteristics of Allison Hightower. We're seeing the recovery and the rehabilitation of King Aegon II, and we're seeing Prince Aemon struggle with power and authority as Prince Regent and the protector of the realm, basically. I don't think we get any Kristen Cole or anything in this episode specifically. I know we get him more in episode 8. Um, so as far as like their armies and the status of their forces, they're still on the march. The Lannister army is still on the march. The Hightower army is still on the march. Um, and yeah, but I mean, moving away from Team Green, let's talk about Team Black, because obviously Team Black is going to be the main focus of this entire episode, or the rest of this episode. Um, I mean, right away, I think we could start with I'm trying to think if what happens to Damon is in this episode or the next episode. Um, I think it's the next episode. So I think when it comes to Damon this episode, if I'm remembering correctly, he was finally able to get House Tully to come to Harrenhal. If I'm not mistaken, um, the head of the house, I forgot what his name is. Grover Tully, I think was the name of the Lord of Riverrun. He finally passed away. So rule of the Riverlands and Riverrun passed to his grandson, Oscar Tully. So he gets Oscar Tully to come to Harrenhal, to kind of gather the River Lords and basically swear allegiance to himself and Queen Rhaenyra, so they can mobilize a standing army in the Riverlands. Um, we see at first, Oscar is hesitant because he knows that, none of the River Lords like Daemon, and he doesn't necessarily trust Daemon either. But, he is steadfast and he is loyal and honorable, and he does want to honor the oath that his grandsire made to King Viserys, and he is willing to, bring in the River Lords and swear allegiance, to Queen Rhaenyra. And further on in the episode, we pivot to, the meeting of the River Lords, by the Godswood in Harrenhal. And we see that Daemon makes a speech, and obviously the River Lords are a little hesitant, and then this is where we see Oscar Tully come in, and kind of show the first steps to becoming a good and capable ruler. He knows the lords are steadfast, and they are very honorable and traditional. And what the best thing about his speech is that he's constantly taking jabs at Daemon Targaryen the whole time, to not only win support of the River Lords, but also be able to probably finally say what he's always wanted to say to him. um, and we see that through a lot of effort and a lot of persuasion, that the River Lords seem to all agree, with their new Lord Paramount. And the one thing that really pushes them over the edge is when they bring justice to House Bracken by basically assassinating and beheading um, the member of House Blackwood that, if you guys remember a couple episodes back, basically took it upon himself, from the orders of Daemon Targaryen, to weaken House Bracken and basically bring them to heel. And in order to do that, unfortunately, they raped, they pillaged, they murdered, and obviously, the Riverlords did not forget that. Regardless of the huge feud that they've had for thousands of years, they're not going to ignore, the slaughter of innocent civilians. So it was Daemon Targaryen himself that took out his sword and actually beheaded the Lord of House Blackwood, to kind of like make amends and reparations, to the Riverlords and House Tully. And after all that was squared away, Daemon Targaryen finally secured his army in the Riverlands, and then the rest of the episode was just all these lords and houses bringing their forces together to mobilize one great host in Harrenhal. And that's pretty much what went on with Damon in this episode. I mean, we still see that he's suffering from like nightmares and visions, reliving his past mistakes. And we see that over time he's actually been trying to correct those mistakes and do what he should have done. Examples are like, consoling his brother Viserys when his wife passed away, from childbirth. And we see that he's trying to play out all these what if scenarios in his head and do what he should have done all along. So we see that even though we're not exactly still clear what his intentions are in the Riverlands, we see that he is trying to make amends, personality and characteristic wise. And we see that just like how Allison went through that, whole kind of like baptism by fire and like reawakening, we see Damon is on the verge of possibly doing the same thing. And it'll be until episode 8 that we'll find out, what his true intentions are and what he decides to do. Um, and this is what again, this is something else that they've done a little bit differently from the books, and I actually don't mind it because I think it allows us to connect deeper with Damon's character on a personal level, and the way they're setting things up, it makes a lot of sense for what's going to happen in like season 3, and what's going to happen to Damon. Um, so yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Um, Now, the pivot, to the rest of Team Black, obviously where we left off in episode 6, Rhaenyra was informed that Sea Smoke has a new rider. And we see at the end of episode 6 that she mounts Syrax and she goes to confront this, supposed rider of Sea Smoke. We find out at the beginning of the episode that this new rider of Sea Smoke is Adam of Hull, which is the bastard son of Corlys Velaryon. So by definition, he does have Targaryen and Valyrian blood in his DNA, which allows him to successfully tame and mount the dragon, so to speak. So we see that Rhaenyra confronts Adam on the beach. She tries to find out like what his parentage is and who his loyalties lie to. To protect, Lord Corlys, he basically bluffs and says that he's like nobody, and he is loyal to her and he wants to serve and protect her. And obviously, this is a huge boost to Rhaenyra because not only did she just gain another dragon, but she gained a loyal and strong dragon rider at the same time. Um, After this revelation and the fact that according to Rhaenyra, this random lowborn bastard just tamed the dragon, after the unsuccessful attempt of Sir Darkland trying to tame Sea Smoke and unfortunately getting killed, she has the idea to open the pool of possible people to tame a dragon to Targaryen bastards. She knows over the many years, there have been male Targaryens that have sired bastards, like all around Westeros and King's Landing, and she basically comes up with a plan to collect these so-called bastards or put the call out to these people. And she enlists the help of Alan Hull, which is Adam's brother, and the Valyrian fleet to like secretly ferry these people over to Dragonstone. So with her spies and connections in King's Landing, she has one of her ladies like spread the word and basically collect as many of these bastard um, you know children as they possibly can. Um, and we see this basically mass exodus of possibly Targaryen bastards leave King's Landing and head to Dragonstone. Um, Obviously, not everybody is extremely thrilled, when it comes to this proposition. This is where we kind of see like, the nobility and the upper class, take issue. Especially her son Jacaerys, and it's not only more of a political issue with him, but it's also more of a personal issue because we all know that, some of Rhaenyra's children are bastards themselves, regardless of whether or not they have the Valyrian last name. We do know that Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey are all children of Sir Harwin Strong. So to Jacaerys, it makes him feel less important because she's just letting any bastard, tame a dragon. And the one thing that set him apart from everybody else was that, he was a Targaryen and he was able to tame a dragon. But now, if anybody could just, you know, come about and tame a dragon, he feels less important. And, rightfully so. I mean, like, this could have possible huge political ramifications for either side. Because what if one of these Targaryen bastards not only tames a dragon, then they decide that they want to rule Westeros themselves? Then not only do they have a decent claim to the throne, but then they also have a dragon. So it is a very risky and gambly move on Rhaenyra's part. But unfortunately, we'll have to see what happens. The rest of this season, and then going into the third season, and whether or not this was, a good idea after all. Um, so we see some familiar faces. We see like Ulf the White and Hugh Hammer are like among the Targaryen bastards that were traveling the Dragonstone. When it comes to Ulf, he claims to be the son of Balon the Brave. And then obviously Hugh Hammer, we find out that he is actually the son of one of Princess King Jaehaerys's daughters. I forgot what her name was. I don't know if it's like Sierra or something like that. But basically she was kind of like exiled to Essos in the book, and she became a very powerful patron at like a brothel, and she was basically just she started out as like a common whore, basically, but because of who she was and her power and influence, she was able to kind of like build herself up and make a name for herself. And he is the bastard son of her. um, so we see that obviously this mass exodus to Dragonstone occurs, and we see that they are all gathered, in one of the parts of Dragonstone. And believe it or not, we actually have the dragon keepers, so the men and women that speak in Valyrian and kind of tame and take care of the dragons. We see them kind of revolt because they do not agree with what's going on here. They argue that taming a dragon and claiming a dragon is a sacred bond, and it should only be allowed for people of pure Valyrian blood, and or I guess of nobility, not just some common born bastard with Targaryen blood. And a lot of them walk out. They want no part of what's about to happen, and they all basically leave their posts, which unfortunately leaves Rhaenyra, um, to simply tame these dragons herself. So we see that she gives like a little bit of like a pep talk to everybody before they approach the first dragon, and the first dragon that they're going to take these people to is Vermithor. So Vermithor was King Jaehaerys's dragon. Obviously, after he passed, nobody else claimed him as a mount, so he has been residing on Dragonstone ever since. So he is called the Bronze Fury. He's the biggest dragon after Vhagar, and she basically wishes everybody luck, and takes him in to see Vermithor. So we see from there, she's able to call forth Vermithor and tame him for the short time being. And after she explains what they must do, she basically takes off and she watches from afar. And at first, everything is going relatively well, until somebody unfortunately tries to step up and, reach out his hand. And this is where we see Vermithor get aggressive and basically start attacking everybody. And he's just attacking everybody. He's lighting people on fire. He's eating them. It basically just turned into a huge massacre. Some people are able to escape, behind the guards. And then, unfortunately, others are like knocked deeper into the dragon pit and are basically just running for their lives. We see Ulf, and Hugh both fall. off the bridge, and we see Ulf basically take off into one of the caves, and we don't see him until a little bit later in the episode. But we follow more of the viewpoint of Hugh, and we see him like going from like barricade to barricade, and trying to escape the carnage that is about to happen, with the Vermithor and the rest of the people. Eventually, after just dwindling down the numbers for some time, we see Hugh basically try to distract Vermithor from eating, a poor girl, and we see him and Vermithor basically face off. And at this point, he's face to face with a dragon. He's got nothing else to lose, and he basically just screams and yells at the dragon, like basically telling him to bring it on, like let's go, like I'm not afraid of you. And in that moment, this is where Vermithor chooses his rider, and in that moment, Hugh Hammer is able to tame Vermithor, and Rhaenyra's objective worked. I mean, unfortunately, at the expense of a couple of dozen people's lives, but somebody of Targaryen blood that was a bastard was able to successfully tame Vermithor. And now not only does she have another dragon, but now she has two dragons um, under her command. After this huge debacle and event, we kind of pivot back to Ulf because we saw him run into a cave and then we don't know what happened to him. So he's kind of stumbling around in the dark, and he eventually comes into more of an open clearing, where he eventually trips and stumbles and falls on a dragon egg. And in the background, very subtle, but she's there if you're looking hard enough. We actually see that he stumbled into the den of Silverwing. So Silverwing was, I believe her name was Allison. She was King Jaehaerys's wife, and Silverwing was her dragon. And same thing with Vermithor. After Queen Alysanne died, um, Silverwing did not have another rider. And what's a little bit interesting about Silverwing is that definitely she definitely has a different personality than Vermithor. She's a lot more tame. She's a lot more sociable, especially around this random person that just literally stepped on her egg. And we see that she kind of plays with Ulf a little bit. Like she's constantly knocking him back with her snout. Eventually, he just ends up falling in a bunch of mud and shit and, dragon stuff. And, he thinks he's about to get eaten, right? And he kind of just lays there and he like lays there and he lays there and he lays there. And then all of a sudden, he like opens his eyes and Silverwing is just hanging out, and she's like, "Yeah, you're pretty cool. We can hang out." And in that weird encounter, Ulf is able to tame Silverwing, um, and it's not too far after that where not only does Rhaenyra find out, but we also see that Team Green finds out as well. They are aware that Sea Smoke has obviously found a new rider, but they don't know who. And we see that towards the end of episode 7 that there is a small council meeting. And as they are going over like affairs and different things, the guards outside they start yelling dragon. And at first they try to ignore it, but they just keep panicking, they keep yelling. And this is when Prince Aemond opens the window and he rushes out of the small council chamber to basically go and mount Vagar. We see that in the sky, Ulf has taken Silverwing for a little bit of a joyride, and he is currently flying over King's Landing with her. So after he gets somewhat of control over Silverwing, we see that he starts to head for Dragonstone. And by that time, we see that Aemon is already in the air with Vagar, and he is like currently pressing Ulf to Dragonstone. It's only when he notices that not only is Rhaenyra there with Syrax, and when he also sees that Vermithor has been tamed and has a rider, that he chooses to pull back. And at first Vagar is all like, nah, like I want this smoke, like let me just keep going. But eventually he is able to gain authority over her and turn her around, and he breaks off the chase. And then at the end of the episode, we see this really powerful shot of Rhaenyra just sitting there. Um, with her dragons, and we see, the newly tamed Vermithor and Silverwing, roaring in the distance, and we see Syrax roaring, and it was such a cool way to end the episode. You were just like, oh shit, like she is like the mother of dragons. Um, And that's basically how the episodes end. So I mean, when it comes to Team Black, we obviously see that they have a huge advantage now. That Rhaenyra was just able to gain three Dragon Riders, and she has the upper hand now. I mean, she already had the numbers, before the Dance of Dragons, but now with these, adult dragons having riders, I mean, she has even a greater advantage now. And definitely at the end of the episode, we see that Team Black has the advantage. And it's going to be interesting to see how Team Green is going to respond to all this. It's also going to be interesting to see how these new Dragon Riders interact with, Queen Rhaenyra and her council and her family. And because of the difference in nobility versus lower class, if they're going to be able to work together or, basically seek common ground. Um, and yeah, I mean that basically brings us to the end of our episode. So I think the vital things to take away for Team Black this episode is we have three new Dragon Riders. So we have Hugh Hammer on Vermithor, we have Ulf the White on Silverwing, and we have Adam of Hull on Sea Smoke. We also have Daemon Targaryen finally claiming his army and his host in the Riverlands. So now, Team Black has their first standing army, marching, assembling in the Riverlands. We know that they have some support from the north, House Stark, but they're still traveling down from the north. So with the amassing of the Rivermen in Harrenhal and this great host of men, they could start taking on armies in the field from Team Green, and gives them a little bit more of an advantage militarily. So not only do they have a very powerful fleet, but now they're starting to amass a very powerful army, and then they just gained three new Dragon Riders. So Team Black is definitely holding all the cards right now. Um, but again, we see some possible points or some possible cracks within Team Black that could be an issue. Again, when it comes to these bastards, claiming dragons, how that's going to affect Queen Rhaenyra, her family, the nobility, her small council, and these lower class individuals. Um, and there could be some possible holes that start to breach Team Black, so they might not be as secure as we think. Um, but nonetheless, again, it was another great episode. It definitely set the stage for the finale, and especially not only the finale, but also what we hope to see and expect in season three as well. Um, but with that being said, guys, that is going to do it for today's episode and today's coverage of House of the Dragon. So thank you guys for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast, where we sat and we discussed episode 7 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. So yeah, like I said, I mean, I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. They're definitely setting the stage for a pretty good finale and really putting everything in place that they need to put in place for season 3. So we'll discuss that a little bit more in our next episode, where we're going to cover episode 8 and the finale of season 2 of House of the Dragons. But for now, this episode will be out this week for your guys' viewing pleasure. I'll probably put it out sometime Thursday, so you guys have something to look forward to watching and listening to end your week. Um, excuse me. So if you're wondering where you can find us and you can find our lovely podcast and just stay up to date on all things Two Sons Podcast, you can find us on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook, all under Two Sons Podcast. That is with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You can also find us on TikTok at Two Sons YouTube, and you can find us again on Spotify and YouTube, all on Two Sons Podcast. Again, that's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. Yeah, like I said, just be on the lookout for those notifications from the social medias. Like I said, I plan on posting the episode on Thursday. So follow the TikTok, stay up to date on the YouTube and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, other than that, again, thank you guys for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast. It has been my pleasure as always to talk to you guys and explore the world of Westeros with all of you. And yeah, like I said, be on the lookout for a couple more episodes that I'm going to record this week. I plan on having episode 8 in the season finale coming out next week, and then the week after that, I hope to have the Alien Romulus review out for your guys' viewing pleasure. So just again, keep track of the socials and stay up to date. When those episodes post. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. You have a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, great night, just a great day in general. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. Stay hydrated. Eat your fruits and vegetables. For those of you that have started school and are going back to school, good luck. Study hard. Don't stress yourself out too much. Take it one day at a time. And I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.